So this year has felt like a big year for movies in general, especially summer movies. We had a whole month basically and we're still in it right now with Jurassic World coming out the first week of July, Superman, and Fantastic Four. And out of the three, obviously I'm a Jurassic fan, so Jurassic is going to be my most anticipated. But I fully expected Superman to be the best. And honestly, I was not disappointed personally. Now, it's not a perfect movie, but it is an amazing movie. Um Honestly, growing up, I never was the biggest fan of Superman. Like his movies were either just too bland for me personally or just weren't good like Man of Steel. Um Batman and like Spider-Man and all those other heroes um were always more interesting to me. That being said, James Gunn still proves he's the best comic book director probably of all time, and he gives us a really great movie. I was floored watching the movie. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Superman, the themes, the characters, the music, the visuals, Crypto, Hot Girl, Clark, Guy Gardner, Lex. It's all fantastic. Um, like I said, though, it isn't perfect. And honestly, I don't think it's James' best work. I think this movie isn't as good as the Guardians trilogy, and I don't think it's better than the Suicide Squad. But I don't want to say that to take away from the movie. It is still great. The gun did not jam, and I'm really enthralled by his new direction at DC. And I feel like the company has a really bright future with James Gunn at the forefront. All right, so spoilers ahead, obviously, but let's start with the good, the super about Superman. Superman is extremely well realized in this movie. David Cornsweet is Superman. I feel like a lot of people will try to fall back on other actors, and everybody can have their own character interpretation that they prefer, but Cornsweet really is to me Superman. He's such a great actor. The first time I was introduced to him was in Pearl, which is a movie that came out a couple of years ago. And he had a pretty solid performance, nothing like groundbreaking, but he did really good. But I feel like this is really where he comes into his own as an actor, and he does such a great job. Um, he really sets Superman apart in every scene. I mean, he saves squirrels, he saves kids, obviously. He tries to save a kaiju that everybody kind of is trying to kill, and he's the only one, you know, trying to do the right thing because that's who he is as a person. So I really feel like he sets himself apart to other heroes, especially in this movie with all the other heroes that are shown. He really sets himself apart. Another character that's a scene stealer is Lex Luthor. Nicholas Holt's performance is insane. He's treated like the biggest hater in the world, but it is in a way that services the tone and the story well. And I honestly think he is the best character in this movie. Um, Not to take away from anybody else, but he's just given the best material. Obviously, Nicholas Hoult is a great actor, and he does such a great job in every scene he's in. Um, the side characters honestly are a hit or miss, but most of them hit. There were a couple that didn't. Hot Girl really works in this movie. Honestly, we are not seeing very much of her, but she has great stories I can see with what little we saw in this movie. Mr. Terrific is literally so cool. I had not known about him until I saw the first trailer for this movie, but I'm a fan now. He is such a cool character. Um, and he really, I hope he is kind of given this treatment where he shows up in a bunch of projects. And I hope he gets his own projects as well, maybe a movie or a show. He really deserves it as a character. He was awesome. Another one that stood out was Guy Gardner. He brings kind of that signature gun comedy, James Gunn comedy to the movie, giving us a character who's super nonchalant. And honestly, he feels really realistic as a hero. And one thing that's a strength of this movie is you're able to see so many different types of heroes that are so different in their ideologies. And I think that's where James Gunn really shines because you know, he usually makes ensemble films, and he's really able to jam a lot into the movie with all different types of character types. Like, Hot Girl really doesn't have care about the morality of like I'm sure she has morality. It hasn't been explored too much, but I mean, there's a scene where she kills the I forgot who it was, but one of the villains of the movie, and she's like, "I'm not like Superman," and it's like it just shows so much of the difference between like each character. Guy Gardner's kind of an asshole. Mr. Terrific's just cool. He's literally like ore farming the whole movie, and then Superman obviously, is very he tries his best to do the best he can in terms of being good and not trying to trying to give the world hope, not trying to be, not trying to kill anybody, anything like that. Really, they all get set apart from each other. Um, the music in this movie is really amazing and it emphasizes Superman and Clark as a hero. I can't really say too much about the music because I feel like it is kind of self-explanatory when you watch it. You kind of just it's amazing already. You can just tell. But I did want to give a little highlight to it because John Murphy and David Fleming really, really did outdo themselves. One thing I really wanted to hone in on was in a part of the story where Clark's backstory is changed. Now, I'm not the biggest Superman fan in the world. I don't know much about him outside of what I've seen in like Injustice, Man of Steel, stuff like that. But I will say there's one aspect that is changed that I knew about, and I think it's the single best and most important aspect of Clark's story and the movie. In this adaptation, Superman's parents sent Clark to dominate and procreate on Earth, and this kind of puts Superman into this kind of like crazy thought process about am I really a hero or am I, who am I? It gives him kind of an identity crisis. And his dad is able to remind him that he's not who he is because of some outside force, not because his parents told him to do it, not because he, for any other reason apart from the fact that that's who he is. That's who Clark is. Clark chose to be a hero. He believes these things in his heart, and that's why he goes out and does them. And this is honestly the best part of the movie to me, and it gives Superman so much. I don't know how to say it, but it gives him his own. He is Clark. Clark is Clark. He isn't who he is because of anyone else. He is himself, and it adds so much to this character in this adaptation. And it was fantastic. All right, so let's talk about some of my smaller issues. Now, I wouldn't say any issue particularly is huge, but all of them are kind of like smaller gripes that I had that aren't they don't stand up to some of the best parts of this movie. Um Lois honestly is not my favorite. I don't know how she's supposed to be in the comics, but in this movie she really does just feel like kind of a hater a little bit. She kind of I know in the interview scene it's supposed to be her putting on her interview hat, but she really digs in on Clark and it's kind of feels a little bit mean spirited. And yes, their relationship is treated very realistically, and I feel like it's much more relatable than them having like a very like cutesy like perfect relationship. I just don't think their chemistry was great. And I know a lot of people feel like they did have great chemistry, but I don't know. It just didn't come through in the movie for me. Another thing is Gunn thrives in making ensemble movies, like I mentioned, with Guardians and Suicide Squad and movies like that, with all these different characters all doing different things. But it does bring some issues for me in this movie because Superman does feel a little sidelined in some moments, and it seems like it's a movie about somebody else at certain points. Like this movie kind of feels more like a DC chapter 1 movie, not a Superman movie in some ways. And I don't think that's a problem, but if you're naming the movie Superman, it's supposed to be about Superman. It kind of feels weird when you're watching it. Maybe if I rewatch it, I won't feel the same way, but in my first viewing, that's kind of what it felt like. And obviously the other characters are still amazing, so it softens the blow. It doesn't make it as noticeable, but it does feel off in some ways in some scenes. One thing that was really riding on this movie, or this movie was riding on, is the fact that this is the beginning of DC, their new vision, James Gunn's new vision, and I think this movie had a lot that needed to do well. It needs to do well financially, which it's doing. It needed to be a great movie to showcase the DC franchise that they're going for. It needs to just give us a great Superman, and it does a lot of those things fantastically. And James Gunn obviously was going on a press tour recently about DC, and he's announced so many projects, talked about the visions, the stories, the themes, the tones that are going to be coming with the future of this franchise. And honestly, the future is really bright for DC. There's so many different visions coming to the studio. Like he said, things are going to be every single movie and show is not going to be the same. And I think that's great. It's kind of going to set itself apart from the MCU because the MCU did one thing that was great about the MCU is that it was able to every movie feels like it's all belongs to the same universe, and that's great. But I think if you give DC a kind of different identity when it comes to every story is going to be different. I actually think that is going to give the franchise much more longevity, and I think it'll benefit them in the long run 100%. And somebody like James Gunn is somebody I fully trust with a franchise, with doing the right thing story wise, and the money is going to come from that. People are going to see that the movies are so well done, and they're going to be willing to spend their money. So I think I really hope though that both MCU and the DCU can simultaneously succeed and give us great stories because these characters deserve it, and the people who are making them really do care about the stories. I truly don't feel like this was a perfect movie on paper, but it's one of those things that I feel like in my heart it was a 10 out of 10 in terms of experience. The amount of passion, love, and care that went into giving us a great Superman story was really clear, and I hope we get to see him in all sorts of stories in the DCU, and I really hope he's able to stand as the Superman. And coming out of this one, I really feel like the future of James Gunn's DC is super bright. And I'm looking forward to every project that is being made. I'm fully on board. And I think anybody who watches Superman will get the same idea. And I think there is just a lot of potential. And I think they will 100% capitalize on it.